You're listening to Last Word Radio, where you get the last word.
Welcome to the Fourth Line Podcast, part of the Alberta Podcast Network, powered by ATB. This is March the 16th, 2020. With you today is myself, Carl, and Stevie Nick.
Carl, I feel like I need to ask, how are you feeling?
I feel good. I mean, like physically, I feel great. No issues there. I mean, emotionally, all over the map.
I think we're all there emotionally.
Yeah, but you feeling okay?
I feel good.
Yeah, which is great. That's
Great
all we
news.
can ask for right now.
I mean, I work from home, so I never leave my apartment anyways.
You have self-isolated as a profession.
That's
You're a
right.
professional self-isolator. I mean, I'm married to one of those as well.
Yeah.
So
you know.
if she's getting sick at this point, I'm bringing it in.
Yeah.
So. But man, Nick, it has been quite the week. I was actually listening back to our episode from last week just a little bit, just to remind myself of how far we've come. If you had to guess, what do you think we talked about last week in regards to the NHL and COVID-19?
No media in the locker rooms. And teams playing to empty arenas, I would guess.
We actually did not even have confirmation about empty arenas at that point in time. We talked about if they did have to, right? The possibility of it. And yeah, we were joking about how dirty are media members that they're not allowed into a locker room. And now here we are.
Crazy week. It's funny because it feels like everything happened and then nothing happened. Like everything that happened in such a short amount of time. And that feels like it was forever ago. And I've been bored for weeks now.
Yeah. Turns out that was Thursday.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. So we'll get to all of that, right? We'll get to what's happened in the NHL, all of that news. But first, Nick, you had something you wanted to really get to the bottom of.
Well, yeah. So last night, getting into bed, have some issue with the blankets. They're all twisted around. And my wife, Christy, and I started having, first of all, we fight about whose fault it was that the blankets got all twisted around. Because it was hers, obviously. And then we get to talking about the sheets. Why are there sheets multiples, right? Like one wraps around the mattress, one sits on top of you. And then the question was posed, is a sheet a blanket?
Okay, let's unpack this one step at a time. Great question about the sheets.
Do you think so?
Unless you're sleeping in a situation where, and it's not something that happens a lot in Canada, where a sheet is enough, right? Like that's not a thing.
Sure.
And there's not a lot of people who like if you walked into someone's house and they just had a sheet on their bed, first off, why is their bed like right when you walk into their house? Like you walk into their house and there's a bed with a sheet on it, you'd be like, I have to leave. Like I'm gone.
I'm at the wrong house.
Yeah. And we're no longer friends. I changed my number. It is weird. Where do you think it all came from? The sheet.
Like, what is the origin story of the sheet?
Like, yeah. Like, how long have we been using bed sheets? How long have beds existed?
I don't know. I mean, I think they date way back, but like the modern mattress filled with springs and cotton, I don't know.
Okay, well so I would guess, yeah, because like when I think to the 1600s, and I think like they were still sleeping on beds.
Yeah.
And like even before that there was a bed, but yeah, like a pocket coil mattress, like what, early 1900s?
Your guess is as good as mine, Carl.
No, I don't know. When you think of the war movies, what kind of things are they sleeping on?
I think I think they're mattresses. They don't have the structure that or technology that our mattresses have today. But like it's a mattress. It's just I don't know. I guess it's whatever material is inside, cotton maybe, wrapped in a sheet.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got the sheet there.
Maybe we're just making up the origin story now.
But then you add the sheet. I get the blankets. The blankets make a lot of sense.
Yes.
I don't understand the sheet, but no, a blanket and a sheet are very different things.
What's the difference?
The thickness and so a sheet is like one layer of fabric, whereas
Yes.
a blanket has like two layers with something in the middle.
Okay. Yes.
So I would say that, like, if you were cold, Nick, and you say, "Oh, can you pass me that blanket?" And I said, "I'll go get you one from upstairs," and I came down with a bed sheet, you'd be furious.
But why do we cover ourselves with sheets in our bed then?
I don't know.
There's one below us and one above us. I just don't understand it. To me,
don't-
like if there's a piece of fabric that covers you, that you wrap yourself in, that could be considered a blanket.
What? No. So you're telling me that if I put on a t-shirt, I'm blanketing up?
Well, no, not quite. That's a wearable because that's fitted.
Okay. So if I put on a poncho, is that a blanket?
Could be. I mean, I'd listen to an argument for it. It's more of a rug than a blanket, but
a poncho is more of a blanket than a bed sheet is.
why?
Because it's still got that thickness.
So for you, a blanket has thickness to it.
I would say a blanket has to have more than one layer. So a poncho has the thickness component, but not the layers. It has to have like something there.
Okay, hear me out here, okay? Blanket is an overarching category of items that you can put over yourself, wrap yourself in to warm you up, feel comfort, whatever. Under the subcategory to blanket is comforter, duvet, poncho, sheet.
Like a smock?
Sure. What's a smock?
I feel like that's a thing that you wrap yourself in, is it not? Like, is a scarf a blanket?
Oh, a smock is a loose dress or blouse.
Maybe I'm wrong. Well, a scarf. Is a scarf like a small blanket?
No, I don't. I mean, I guess it's a blanket for your neck.
It's a neck blanket.
It's a neck blanket. Yeah, I'd buy that.
I take a lot of issue with this line of thinking.
I will say, I put the question out on Twitter last night. Not a single person agreed with me.
Yeah, sounds right.
So I'm fighting a losing battle here. However, I feel like I'm onto something with my blanket as an overarching category argument. And then it has this subcategory of blankets.
But let's say you're making a blanket for it and you show up with bed sheets. I'm sending you home. You're not making a blanket for it with me.
Bed sheets are more practical. They're lighter. They're less prone to knock down the rest of the fort.
But then they also will let through light. And I don't want, like, if I wanted a window, sure. But if I'm making a blanket for it, I want that firmness of it. I don't want bed sheets.
Well,
is there a certain thread count that makes it qualify as a blanket?
I haven't thought that deep into it, but no, I don't think so. It serves the purpose of laying on top of you.
Okay.
And warming you, adding a layer to your warmth.
So if it lays on top of you and warms you, it's a blanket.
Yes.
Okay. I'll leave it at that.
Is this the last time I'll ever be on this show?
Yeah. Turns out the NHL is not the only thing suspended right now. Well, let's get into some of this. Before we do, Nick, we've got a brand new sponsor to talk about today.
Hey, that's fun.
Yeah, a brand new sponsor. So this sponsor we want to tell you about is called Snow and Tell. I know last week you were bragging about your weather. This weekend, my wife was not in Calgary, and I was complaining about, everything's closed. I had full intentions on going to the car show this weekend. Couldn't do that. I was like, yeah, I'm already bored. She's like, oh, why don't you go for a hike? It was minus 22 and we got about 15 centimeters of snow. So Snow and Tell is an accurate show for us to have right now. It is Snow and Tell, the Winter City podcast. You can't change the weather, but you can change how you feel about it. This podcast explores how the right attitudes can uncover the opportunities and potential in Winter City. So let's take a listen to it.
It's not a spoiler alert. Winter is going to be here for a good chunk of the year, every single year.
For some people, the very thought of winter is enough to send chills down their spine.
But for others, winter is a season full of beauty, of adventure, of racing down the ski hill or snuggling by a roaring fire.
I don't want to be inside during the winter.
A season of contrast, light and dark, fire and ice, cold and warmth, a season full of potential.
Part of the lighting design process is making the informed decision of not to illuminate something.
If we have everything lit, then it just might look like a greenhouse where we're all tomatoes trying to produce work.
And every day, more and more cities and people are coming around to seeing the possibilities of winter.
The way that the city streets are being used is changing.
I'm Sue Holdsworth.
And I'm Isla Tanaka.
Welcome to Snow and Tell, the Winter City podcast.
Together, we'll talk to specialists and thought leaders.
We'll hear stories from everyday people just like you about their wintry trials and tribulations, triumphs and transformations.
We can't change the weather, but we can change how we feel about it, how we design for it, play in it, thrive in it.
I mean, we're all jubilant when we have a little exercise.
We can hibernate or we can choose to change our thinking and actually plan to make winter a better experience for everyone.
There is no such thing as bad weather. It's bad clothing.
Join us as we learn how to make our cold cities cool.
Find Snow and Tell, the Winter City podcast on your favorite podcast service or online at wintercityedmonton.ca/podcast.
I've learned over 70 years how you can get along really well outside in Edmonton, no matter what the season is.
You can find Snow and Tell on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also find it online at wintercityedmonton.ca/podcast. That's wintercityedmonton.ca/podcast. All right, let's get into it.
Get into what?
The week that was, Nick. I actually thought to myself when we're thinking about it, like an unprecedented show. I always thought to myself, when Gary Bettman locks us out, like, what are we going to do for content?
Never saw this coming.
Didn't think we'd be here. Did not think this would be how this happened.
One way or another, Gary Bettman was going to make sure there was no hockey at some point this year.
Yeah, he's like, dang, this CBA thing's working too well.
Yeah. Okay, so let's walk through this timeline quickly, okay? So we record Monday. Tuesday proceeds as normal. Wednesday is when everything really went kind of nuts, right? Because like within the same 30 to 60 minute period, the president of the United States banned travel to and from Europe. The Utah Jazz game was canceled.
Well, first delayed. Rudy Gobert out with an illness, which quickly becomes Rudy Gobert with corona.
Canceled game. NBA postpones the rest of their season.
Like immediately after, within 5 minutes, that all happened.
It was pretty fast. And then NHL releases a statement saying, we're listening to all our health officials. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow. And by 1 p.m. the next day, just over 12 hours later, the NHL had postponed their season. And then later that afternoon, I believe the MLB had delayed the start of their season.
Yeah, so sports shut down. By the end of the weekend, I believe, Saturday, there was still a moderate amount of hope that there would be sports. And by sports, I mean NASCAR and IndyCar had talked about still having their event with no fans at the races. Those were also canceled.
There are some events that haven't been canceled in the world of sports entertainment.
Yes, that's true.
The WWE has not canceled any of its events yet. They are performing in their training facility with no crowd.
So they did one at like the Orlando Conference Center. And did you see how that looked?
No, was it weird?
It was weird, but they did a pretty good job. It was like, because it wasn't the same as doing it in an arena that was just empty. It was very small, and it felt crowded. Like it felt like there wasn't enough room to hold a wrestling match in somehow.
Oh, interesting.
But they're going to be doing the same thing. They just announced WrestleMania going to still happen, but like you said, at their training center with no crowd. So
that's the only one.
Crazy. And the KHL is still happening because of course it is.
The KHL is still playing?
Yeah.
Boy.
I believe only the Russian teams are playing. Other countries no longer allowed to.
Yeah.
And so they're delaying the second round of the playoffs because they're in the playoffs right now, delaying the second round of the playoffs so that they can reconfigure things and come out with some sort of a timeline for it. So KHL going to have a champion this year.
Well, I mean, I think the NHL is still intending on having a champion this year too.
So this is the question. And I know we gave this caveat last week, but let's give it again. Things change very quickly.
Yeah, like hourly.
Yeah. I mean, Saturday afternoon, I was supposed to be at work on a normal work day on Monday. Sunday afternoon, I wasn't. So that's a thing, right? Like things are going to change quickly, but with where it's at, we're seeing a lot of the things. NBA has said that they are looking at the end of June to fire back up. Today, NASCAR canceled all events until May 3rd. There's talk in baseball circles that the end of July is when baseball is going to get back underway. We have the entire city of San Francisco was put on a 2-week quarantine today. Things keep escalating more and more and more. What are your thoughts? You say we might still have one. Do you think we will have playoffs and a Stanley Cup champion crowned this year?
I think there'll be a condensed version of playoffs. I don't think we're going to see any more regular season play. I think we'll see a condensed playoffs, whether that means series that are best 3 out of 5 or skipping the first round and cutting those teams out. But I think the NHL is going to do their darndest to crown a champion this year.
So this is one thing that interests me with all of that. So you say you don't think the regular season continues, and I would agree. But then I fully expect that you are going to have some very upset fan bases because, right now you've got the New York Islanders sitting 1 point back of the Columbus Blue Jackets for the last wildcard spot with 2 games in hand. So for them, they want to play those 2 games. Absolutely they do. But it doesn't seem practical at this point in time to, one, be able to schedule all of those games to happen and then go from there.
Yeah. No, I don't see how they're going to do that with the timeline that they're on right now.
No. So I guess what that brings us to then, Nick, is this week's Elimination Station.
Elimination Station.
The Elimination Station brought to you by Park Power. In these times, when there's so much uncertainty. You want certainty. Head to parkpower.ca where you can get the utilities that you need from a great company. Good news, Nick. The Minnesota Wild are currently out of a playoff spot.
Man, I've been sweating about that one for a couple weeks.
So as of right now, every team we've eliminated out of a playoff spot. I guess, do you want to work our way through the rest of the teams? Because our goal every week is to eliminate a team from the playoffs. Should we just pick one at random this week that we haven't eliminated that's currently out and talk about how to fix them?
Yeah. I mean, that's what I think is going to happen. The league is going to come back and they're going to say, sorry, guys, but it is what it is.
And I think you have to be okay with that. The teams, the players, everything are going to have to be okay with some sort of, like, there's a situation that's not going to be fair for everyone. There's not a way for us to get an equitable decision made to be able to schedule things with how hard it is to schedule, especially if the NBA is coming back at the same time. You got to think that the time frame of those two are going to be faster. But you hear teams complaining about ice when they're finishing the Stanley Cup finals in June. You want, right? Like right now, you want to be playing hockey in Missouri in August and try to play on that ice? You want the Tampa Bay Lightning in Florida to be facing off in that summer's heat? No, it's going to be terrible.
Yeah. So, we pick a team?
Let's pick a team. Let's do it, Nick. Do you want to? I know I fully sprung this on you. Do you want to recap for us who we've eliminated I don't pick a team that we've already done?
Yeah, I got it. We so far on the elimination station, we have the Detroit Red Wings, the Ottawa Senators, the Los Angeles Kings, the Anaheim Ducks, the Minnesota Wild, the New Jersey Devils, the San Jose Sharks, the Buffalo Sabres, the New York Rangers, the Montreal Canadiens, the Chicago Blackhawks, and I forgot to add them until just a second, the Arizona Coyotes.
So we've got one team left in the West. Let's save that. Let's head over to the East. It's looking like the Florida Panthers and New York Islanders are the two teams we have to choose from. You want to just do the Panthers?
I think we do the Panthers. That's where I would lean between the two anyways.
Yeah, I agreed. If we had hockey this week, one can only assume that the Sergei Bobrovsky-less Florida Panthers continued to struggle. So, Nick, how do we fix the Florida Panthers? Fix the Florida Panthers.
Well,
easy
Carl,
for me to say.
We fix the Florida Panthers. Say it 5 times fast. How do you fix Sergei Bobrovsky? Because he was the missing piece for this team, remember?
Yeah.
The goalie was the missing piece.
They kicked Roberto Luongo out, retired his jersey, brought in Bobrovsky at a ridiculous number, and he struggled.
Do you not feel like the Panthers are in the same bucket as the Carolina Hurricanes, where every year the hockey community is like, the Panthers are a good team. This is going to be their year. They'll make it. And then this happens to them.
It's true. And I would say even more so than the Hurricanes. Because like the Hurricanes actually made the playoffs last year and like won.
Yeah.
The Florida Panthers, not the case. And like getting worse. Like the trade of Vincent Trocheck at the deadline does not help this team become any better.
Yeah, why did they do that? He was like one of their 3 best players. Like, why did you trade him away?
It's a great question, Nick.
I still don't understand that one. Like, you keep telling your players you're expected to be a playoff team, but you're going to trade away one of your best scorers?
Not smart.
So maybe the way to fix this team, Carl, is to find someone to manage it who stops making bonehead moves.
You know what, Nick? That's a smart decision because it's not salary. We can't say that this team's not spending to the cap.
No,
they've done it, right? Like they're not playing like a small market team. They've got Joel Quenneville behind the bench. That's not a cheap ticket.
Nope.
They've got, $10 million Sergei Bobrovsky in net. You've got a lot of money in a lot of players. Now, you've also got a fair amount coming off the books next year. Mike Hoffman,
yeah,
his deal's up. Evgeny Dadonov, his deal's up. And Arikala, who they got in the
Carolina trade.
In the Vincent Trocheck trade, his deal's up. So you've got probably, $10 million, $11 million coming off there. Do you expect like Hoffman or Dadonov to come back?
I would think that yes, they'd try to bring. Actually, I would think they try to bring both of them back. The problem with those guys is they're in such a weird spot age-wise that like you don't want to give them a lot of term, but you don't want to give them a lot of money if you're giving them a short term. Like you almost want them to come in exactly where they're at right now.
Yeah, I would. I mean, if they brought those guys back on a 2-3 year deal at those terms, I'd be fine with that. I mean, less so for Dadonov. I would, I guess 25, 30 goals. Yeah, that's a great price
Right?
for a 40 for that. Yeah, for at $4 million.
But would you give either of those guys 2 or 3 years at like $7 million or $6 million?
No, not even close.
Don't you think that's what they would be asking for though? The players?
I would think so. Mike Hoffman, I would rather give, and again, he's making more right now. I'd rather give more money to Hoffman than Dadonov, but not 7.
No. So I don't know what they're gonna do. Like that. That's why those guys are hard because they're in that weird age range coming into UFA.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I personally probably would try and get them at like a 6.5, either of them. Maybe you can get Dadonov at 5.5. Short term though, like I don't want to give them a 6-year deal or a 7-year deal.
No, not even. No, they're both going to be 31 next year. Not a good choice. What do you ask the question? What do you do with Sergei Bobrovsky?
Yeah.
What do you do? I have no idea.
I don't know. Go get the goalie coach he was working with in Columbus.
That's
Seriously though.
It
unless
is, yeah.
they already got him.
Could you imagine? Yeah, that's the guy. We've already fired him.
He's part of the problem.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anything they can do. I think it's a personal thing he's going to have to figure out.
You have to play him. You can't not. And for him, take this offseason to figure that out. Take some time to practice, right? Like the other side of this extended cancellation, I know it's only, for a non-playoff team, only 10 games that you're missing out on, but this gives you that chance. These players will be coming back the freshest they've ever been.
Yeah, true enough.
Right?
Assuming they're allowed into a gym at some point.
Assuming, right? I mean, you've got, I would think that they probably have some sort of equipment at their homes.
I would think so.
If Sergei Bobrovsky can't afford a treadmill or some weights, he's probably spending his money poorly. And I know he's not, because he's giving a bunch of money to the Florida Panthers staff. So,
yeah, good for him.
Yeah. All right. Well, there you go. That is the Elimination Station, powered by Park Power. ParkPower.ca is your place to go for the greatest energy and utilities in Alberta. Let's go back, Nick, because there's a lot of questions that I still have about all of this.
All right. Let's see if we can answer them.
Okay. Last week we talked about the NHL salary cap possibly going up all the way to $88 million.
Yeah.
We're staying still? Is it going down? Because this is a lot of lost revenue for these teams.
Yeah, I don't think it'll go down. I think the players in the league will probably strike a deal to either keep it the same or bring it up a bit, but I don't think it's going up to 88 million.
Do you think, and it seemed like there was some positive progress on a CBA. And obviously a lot has changed, a lot of question marks. I feel like all of that is stalled. And we're in like a new situation now. I don't fully buy into the fact that that's a thing that we're dealing with, where they have an agreement and are at a good spot.
Well, I mean, like it seemed like they were in a good spot before this happened. I would think that the talks are probably on hold right now as they monitor this situation and then come up with contingency plans for the rest of the season. I would think that figuring out this season is a priority for them right now. For both sides, it should be.
Absolutely. Yeah. Being able to get that done and sort something out. I do agree with you. Some sort of shortened playoff. I don't think they're going to reduce the number of teams because I guess it depends when they come back, right? Like if they're not coming back till the end of June to then have 4 rounds of playoffs, even best of 5, you're looking at 2 months of hockey, putting you at the end of August to finish. And then you have to have the draft. Could you draft? So let's say that this literally just crossed my mind. So this is the most half-baked of ideas.
Okay. Could
you say right now, if we come back, it's jumping into the postseason, standings are frozen, this is what it is, and then hold the draft before the playoffs?
I was thinking about that. Like, why can't you have the draft before the playoffs end? But ultimately, the way the playoffs play out will affect the draft order, will it not?
As it stands now, yes, it would, right? Because it's based on per round. So if you get eliminated, you're in that round of bracket. So like the Cup champion drafts last.
Yeah. I think that's going to be a tough sell to the teams. That like if you're in first place when we come back, then you draft last. That's going to be a tough sell. And then you get an early first or second round exit from the playoffs.
Which I've seen some people suggest a much worse idea, which is everything's random. And so every team has an equal shot.
No. The Red Wings season did not die for that.
You know what? I thought you might have a strong thought on that.
Yeah, no, absolutely not.
And there's no reason for it. It's not like the lost season. We have actual data to go off of to pick it. But I do think that there will be, maybe not in, because like this year's draft was supposed to be a fairly deep draft.
Yes.
And I think it still will be in the first round. But there will be a lot of lower round players that I think will not, like, you're not necessarily knowing what you're going to be doing next year. If it's not happening until, September, right? If the draft's not till the, Labor Day as the draft, right? And then, September 2nd, free agency hits. And all of a sudden, if the NHL is still doing it, then you've got the season starting 1 month after free agency opens. So take your rest now because you're not getting a summer break, Stanley Cup champions.
Yeah, no kidding. Or they delay the start of the season by a month or two.
Which even then, do you then get rid of the All-Star game next year?
Yes, please. That's a great idea, Carl.
We fixed it. We fixed the All-Star game. So take out the All-Star break, start a week later. Now we're starting, middle of October? So at least you get a month and a half off? Or even a month, because camps are opening the start of October. Cancel the preseason. I guess. I don't know. But if you don't make the playoffs, then that's like 6 months without hockey. 7 months. Which also doesn't seem like a good idea.
A lot of questions here. You know what else just crossed my mind? You're talking about free agency. How do contracts actually work in this situation? Because aren't the contracts ending on June 30th?
Yeah. So
do they like get extended by a couple months until the end of the season?
Could you imagine in the middle of the playoffs, just all these guys become free agents? It's like, well, sorry. No, that's a thing. They'll have to create some sort of agreement with the players to extend it. Because
I would think so.
I mean, I would love it if all of a sudden all these guys like Taylor Hall is all of a sudden signing with someone. It's like, all right, we're down to the final 4. Who you got?
Yeah, right. Okay, how about this idea? Because here, I would at least, if they're going to skip the rest of the regular season and just do the playoffs, it makes sense to me that they at least try and get every team to 71 games, since that's the most games played. So the season resumes. It's like a 3-day scramble where all the teams that aren't at 71 games play each other to get up to the 71 games, and then you seed from there. And then you maybe do a best 2 out of 3 first round or second round.
Yeah, I think you do, because baseball does that, right? Where they do like shorter early rounds and then move up to it.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that. Like if you did a best of 3, best of 5, and then 2 best of 7s.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
And then you do like 3 days. Each of the teams who doesn't have 71 games played already plays the 2 games or 1 game left, just to even out to even out the games played in the standings, and you reseed from there. It's basically like a play-in situation.
And because I had that thought, and I know that understandably, right? Who's the home team? Who's taking home that revenue? Because now you're going from a 41 game home ticket amount to 35.
Oh,
so who gets that home game? That's another thing you're going to have to sort out.
Yeah.
So I think all of that will become an issue. But I think trying to get to 71 would be good. There is currently, like, of teams in the playoffs, there's 4 that have played 71 games. So we've seen in the past where if a game does not matter for playoff seeding, that they'll not do it, right? Like because of weather or because of whatever, mostly just weather. So even if you did where in the East, you had everyone play 70 games. So you let the Islanders, they're 2 back.
Sure, yeah.
The Panthers, right? Because everyone in the East is at 70 points. So do that. But then that messes with draft, right? Because now all of a sudden there's teams in some places that have played 71 games. So needless to say, a lot of things have to be answered before this all happens.
Yeah, 100%.
So we've got the end of the season. We've got free agency, the draft, extending, a late start to next season, taking out the All-Star game. We've now seen a lot of owners who thought they could get away with letting the players pay their staff for them.
Oh, yeah. It's a very nice gesture by the players, but come on, guys.
If any of our bosses came to us and said, hey, work's closed this week, you're getting paid, but the guy who works down the hall's not, because you're the manager and he's not the manager, right? You're making the big bucks. He's not. We're going to pay you. Don't worry about you. You're fine. He's not. And then you're like, well, I guess I've got to make sure that he's got kids. I'm going to make sure that he's taken care of. In any other situation, that is crazy.
Yeah.
That I know that if you were to ever describe them as coworkers, it wouldn't really fit the bill. But it's a more fitting description than a sheet as a blanket.
I don't know if it's more fitting, but I see your point.
I don't get it, Nick.
No. A lot of owners have had to walk back on their original statements on this, right? It's funny what public embarrassment can do, because when these players started coming out and saying, fine, if you're not going to step up and do it, then I'll do it. What an embarrassing thing to happen to an ownership group.
Absolutely.
And now they're all starting to step up and take the responsibility.
Yeah, you've got some of the richest people in the world, right? Like you've got the Cronkies who are part of the Walmart fortune. Everyone's making their big panic buy runs at Walmart. Walmart's doing great right now. They're like, no, we're not going to pay you. And even still, I find it interesting, like the way that this is done. They're not like, yeah, we got you covered. Like, we'll start a fund to pay you. Like, that seems, again, just, why don't you just pay them?
Yeah.
But
I don't get it. I don't get why it took this long for some of these guys to figure it out. I love seeing them flip-flop, though, from first saying no to now saying yes, because that means the shaming worked.
Congratulations, everyone. Your pressure made it happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which I feel like is a thing in a lot of realms right now. Like, you put a little bit of pressure on people, whether it be politicians, billionaires, whatever it is, they're listening. And they're when you're doing things to make sure that people stay healthy, listening to people also becomes pretty important. So
absolutely.
Was there any other sort of fallout, consequences, side effects that you've seen this week that we haven't touched on yet?
A lot of the sports networks are playing old games, which I think is pretty cool. Last week, or I guess it was this week, Tim and Sid replayed the 7th inning of the Jays Texas Rangers playoff game 7. That was fun to rewatch.
Yeah, that's good. And that, as they should be, right? There should be lots of great content. Well, there's lots of great content out there. So let us relive some of that, because you got nothing else.
And there's been some classic games played. Like, what would be a classic game that you would want to watch right now? What should the networks play? Classic NHL game.
I think they should show like so it's on like Hockey Day in Canada, right? You've got your 3 games. You should show the final, every weekend it's canceled. Work your way back. Show the final 3 games of every Stanley Cup final in one day, back to back to back.
Totally agree. So every week we're seeing somebody raise a Stanley Cup.
Or so on a Saturday, right? You've got Bruins Canucks, game 5, 6, and 7, or Bruins Blackhawks 5, 6, and 7. Lightning Blackhawks. Do that.
Let's sprinkle in some different teams there too. We don't just need to focus on the 2010 to 2014 corridor.
I was just thinking of like ones that went deep, right?
Yeah.
And keep going back, right? Like, you can play the Kings Leafs Stanley Cup final.
Yeah.
You can play. There's so many to choose from. Go back and show those. That was where I would start.
Yeah, I would definitely focus on big playoff moment games. Recent history to me, a few that jump out are the Canadiens Bruins. I think it was a game 7 where the Habs won. I think about Ovi winning the cup. That one's got to be up there. I think about the HBK line in Pittsburgh. Show some of those games. There's a lot of good playoff moments, recent playoff moments, and not so recent. Like, show Ray Bourque winning the cup.
Yeah, show that
Steve
a lot.
Steve Yzerman winning the cup.
Yeah, Ray Bourque again.
Show that. Actually, they should show that game where the Avalanche won and all the rats were being thrown on the ice in Florida.
Show
what a weird moment.
Show that game that we rewatched, right? You can show that.
You're sick.
But there are lots. I know, going back to our hockey history series in the summer, Summit series.
Yeah.
Put that on there.
Great idea.
That gives you it was 8 games. You've got 8 games to show. Do that over the course of a week.
even some of the like classic World Junior teams, who the guys are all now like legit NHL superstars.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. And then go back. I know. I don't know if someone was just replaying it for themselves, but like Olympics, I saw some Olympic gifts making the rounds today, right? So go back, show some of those games. Lots of good things.
Yeah.
Well, there we go, Nick. But most importantly, we're here. We're not going anywhere. The Fourth Line Podcast. I guess we should probably have talked about that.
I'm just kidding. We're here. We need the distraction.
We need the distraction. You need the distraction. And in all honesty,
Go ahead. You can fix that in post-production.
In all honesty, we're gonna see what kind of creative things we can do too. Because who knows what kind of time and situations we have on our hands. If I'm stuck in a house, Nick's stuck in a house, we might as well be stuck in a house together, thousands of kilometers away.
Virtually.
Right. So we'll still be here. Don't you worry. In the same way that we do an episode through the entire off season, there's just like literally no hockey news. Like, I assume next week we're going to eliminate a team in the elimination station, one of the two we have left. And then I don't think we'll have anything to talk about. But I know a lot of people have been clamoring for some things. Speaking of WWE, there's been a lot of talk of Royal Rumble on the old social medias for us, Nick. So we might have to have something like that happening. It's time to bring that back. So we'll see what happens.
We have plans to make.
We've got things to do and talks to have. So we will get to all of that in due time. There was something that I had a question for you. That's really, it's bugging me now that I can't remember what it was, because it was a very important question. But if you, right, I mean, we all have hockey's canceled. All sports are canceled. We can't go anywhere, right? Like in Toronto, restaurants are being closed, correct?
Yep, that is right.
Calgary will probably get to the same. The weird one here, never mind. I'm not going to get into it. That's a whole other kettle of fish.
Okay.
No, I am. You know what you can still go to in Calgary?
The museum.
Maybe. Libraries are closed. Rec centers are closed.
I'm sure the museum's closed.
Probably.
What the heck is Dougie Hamilton doing?
He's in Carolina. He's fine.
Okay. What's open?
Casinos, Nick.
Still?
Yeah.
You know what, though? Ontario, we just closed ours yesterday.
So if you want to go pull the same lever that everyone else has pulled, head on down while you still can.
I would not go to a casino right now.
No. Not even still. But so with all these things happening, with all of these things being postponed, canceled, etc., what are you looking forward to do to fill your time with?
Oh boy, so many things. I'm going to catch up on some reading. I have the autobiography of Nick Lidstrom to read, and I've got the biography of Scotty Bowman to read, which was written by Ken Dryden.
I got it for Christmas. Haven't read it yet either.
Me too. Maybe we'll do a book club.
Ooh, that's another thing that's been suggested. So maybe we'll do for everyone, go buy this book. We'll read it together.
There you go. Written by Ken Dryden, who also wrote one of the best hockey books of all time, The Game.
Yep. So we've got that. Some books. I've already bought one video game since this has happened.
Oh, have you? I just started replaying The Witcher 3, which is going to take like 100 hours anyways.
That's a good
hours.
Did you watch the Netflix series?
I did.
And?
It's a little convoluted. Didn't quite understand why they had to break up the timeline as much as they did, but.
Well, and as someone who's like played the game, you have infinitely more backstory than someone going in fresh.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't played too many of the games. I thought they captured the characters really well. And when it was all done, I was like, oh, that was good. But the problem was I had to go watch it again to really like get the timeline, which I haven't done yet.
Yeah. Well, so I also picked up, it was a weekend of digital spending. I also grabbed the old Disney Plus, Nick. So,
hey, nice.
So I started.
Watch Gargoyles.
Ooh, I hadn't thought about that. I started by watching. What inspired it was with some friends. We'd watched episode 1 and 2 of Star Wars, starting from the beginning and working your way back through. Sunday, I sat down to do some work, which turns out I didn't need to do because work got weird today. And put on Sandlot.
Oh, is that on there?
It is, yeah.
Great. Is it hold up? I love that movie.
It is way less child friendly than I remember it being. like there are words in that movie that I would edit on this show. And I was a little surprised, but as a movie, it wasn't just nostalgia that had me watching it. Like it was good.
It's a good movie.
Like all of the times where they take those efforts to get the ball back from the beast is so good.
It's a great movie. I remember as a kid just being so confused by the chewing tobacco scene. Like, what the heck are they doing?
Yeah.
Now I know what chewing tobacco is.
Well, yeah. I forgot about that scene when I was watching it, and then like it started up and it's like rated this for tobacco references. I'm like, I don't remember those, but apparently the confusion stood out to him. So I will most certainly be rewatching the Mighty Ducks movies on there as well.
Getting ready for the series.
Yeah, gotta prep for that. Which, I mean, we've seen movies being delayed all over the place, so I wouldn't be surprised to see potentially the series. I don't know where they're at in the filming process, but unfortunately, that might also be a thing that gets delayed. Everything outside of your house is probably being delayed.
Yeah,
it's
probably
just happening.
So I cut you off. What game did you buy?
I bought Gran Turismo GT Sport on the weekend.
Oh, nice.
Which, like, I'm always a sucker for a racing game. I pretty much have like all of the. I'm a PlayStation guy. I know you're not even a consoler, so
no, not anymore. I haven't played a Gran Turismo game in years.
I hadn't either. I think the last one I played was 3. So it's been fun. I mean, I've played probably like an hour of it total.
Yeah.
But it's still a good racing game. I think everything else is like moved up to that bar though, and so it doesn't stand out as much as the rest now.
Yeah,
because everyone just copied their model. So, but you never know. I mean, what else? What else have I been playing? I also downloaded the that new Call of Duty Battle Royale game, which has been fun.
Is that like Fortnite but Call of Duty? Like you drop into an arena and you just fight each other?
Yeah, it's more of like an Apex style because it's still on that Call of Duty engine.
Yeah,
so it's first person versus third, and it's fun. That's a good one. I enjoy. If you like the Call of Duty game, because I know you were previously an Apexer.
I still play Apex.
Yeah, so I would give it a shot. I guess you don't. I don't know what its deal is on PC, but it's free on console. So
I'll have to check it out.
If you're into those kinds of things, check that out. It's a good time. Well, Nick, we will be doing lots of things. It like you said, some Royal Rumble, maybe a book club, maybe talk a little bit of movies, something that we've always had that chance to. Because who knows how long we're going to be like this for without actual games to talk about. So we'll be back next week on Mondays, just as always. And you never know. There might even be a little bonus episodes every now and again to tickle your fancy and give you something to do while you're doing whatever you're doing, while you're not doing the other things you would be doing. So thanks for tuning in. Thank you. Hopefully this was, I mean, we didn't want to just have a real serious show because it's so, like you said, Nick, the emotions are all over the place for folks, the feelings.
Yeah, I think it's a very serious thing that we're dealing with as a species right now, I guess, and as a society. But I know I need the break every week to take my mind off of it and have some fun. And I hope that we can bring that to all of you.
Yeah, so we'll be here. Thank you for tuning in. You can head over to the fourthlinepodcast.com for more about the show. We're obviously a big part of the... we're not a big part. We are a part. We are a small part of the Alberta Podcast Network. They would have to issue a statement. We do not agree with the statements of the Fourth Line Podcast. We are a part.
You're going to have a pie chart and just this little line that comes out that shows how big of a part we are.
They're going to pull a Babcock and Mitch Marner, everyone on the network. Okay, rank how important every show is. Oh, look, Fourth Line, you're down at the bottom. There you are, right there. So very excited. AlbertaPodcastNetwork.com. Head over there for more great shows. If you're looking for more stuff, you can find us everywhere you find shows. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, everywhere. If you have extra time right now and you're looking for stuff to do, we'd love it if you gave us a review on any of those platforms. Thank you very much to everyone who does. Thank you for tuning in. And until next week.
It's time for us to wrap up another Fourth Line show. I know what you're thinking. You've got no place to go. Wash your hands and don't touch your face. And be good to each other in the human race.